Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial's set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're here, and we're here for the next 2 hours, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time, broadcasting from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli, and hour number one, we're going to be talking about dogs and dog breeds and what you should know about selecting a dog. It's important because this dog will be a member of your family. Dr. Doug Leigh is with us. He's a veterinarian, a DVM. Welcome, Dr. Doug Leigh.
Thank you. You hesitate to mention that it's cold in the Ozarks also. We're going to get a couple warm days in and bottom falls out of it.
Well, you know, I stepped outside to check the wood stove. Dr. Leigh, we heat our house with an outdoor wood furnace. And we have lots of trees falling down here on the farm. And when they fall down or if they're dead, we'll just cut them up for firewood. Right. So I went out to check the outdoor wood furnace, and it is a sheet of ice. It's freezing rain. Very thin coat, slick. You can't really tell that it's like that. So I expect that there are going to be a number of accidents this morning from those who think that the road might just have a little bit of rain on them, but it's not. Right. It's slick. Yeah. So,
well, my problem is I've got a frozen stock tank, but let's talk about dogs. Got to defreeze the tank or de-ice the tank before the next freeze comes along. So, yeah.
Good point. So, Dr. Leigh, a number of us are interested in animals and having them, and we know that from your last appearance here in class, you're telling us that people live longer when they have animals that they love and they take care of them. So, dogs. I was thinking, how do we select a dog? Do we just look in the window and say, how much is that doggy? Or do we spend some more time evaluating personalities, traits, and so forth, size? And then, you've mentioned this. You've mentioned this to me. Size, coat, personality. What do we do? How do we start this process?
Well, first of all, you have to go way, way back. Dogs, no matter what breed they are, they all came from a wolf, way, way back. As a matter of fact, 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, they saw that the Egyptians had greyhounds on the walls of their whatever, and then also you have the caveman even had dogs. So they go way, way back. My travels around wherever I've been around the world, I've seen what I've always called the universal dog, which looks a lot like a Basenji. So it tells you that apparently the Egyptians took their dogs around the world wherever they went, and they went a lot of places. But we get to the wolf. Now, right now, there are the AKC, American Kennel Club, which is probably the most recognized dog association in the country, or maybe the world even. They are 132 years old, and they have registered with them 202 breeds. And I've never heard of them dropping a breed, although they may have, I'm sure. But they add breeds periodically, and it takes a lot to get into the AKC. There are other kennel clubs that are recognized, but AKC is the one you see on TV. So that's the one to look at if you want to see dogs. Now, we get down to a couple of things. The size of the dog, the personality of the dog, and the hair coat of the dog, in my opinion, are probably the most important things to consider. And really, I think personality is the most important, because that disposition is something you're going to live with for anywhere from 5 or 7 years or so for some of the large breeds, up to 17 plus years for the average size breed. Now, why the spread? Larger breeds don't live as long. Great Danes, for example, their life expectancy is pretty darn short, 5, 7 years. That's about it. You take the average little mixed breed, he's up around 17 years or so, and the small type poodles and so forth, they're in there, that area also. But that dog's going to be with you for a long time, and you can't divorce him. Sure, you can take him to the dog pound, or the Humane Society or someplace, but that's not a very neat place to go. So you want to avoid that. So I think you have to pick a dog by the personality. Now, the personality can be developed a lot by the individual. And I mentioned to you earlier about this one guy that came in one day with a little 8-week-old pit bull. Pit bulls have a bad, bad name. Obviously, we all know that, as being aggressive. Well, this guy, he wanted to have a combat cut on the dog's ears. Now, as far as cropping ears, that's a thing. It's tough on the dog. The dog may look better, but that's the personal thing. If you want it cropped, get them cropped. If you don't, don't. But he wanted a combat cut. This told me quite a bit about the guy, really. Before he even did anything else, and he put the dog down, he started, look at this. Look at how aggressive he is. You start teasing an 8-week-old dog, and the dog is snapping at him. And he said, boy, he's going to be a good one. Well, I never did see that guy again, thank goodness. But I think the way you train the dog is a big, big factor in how he's going to be as a pet. Now, sure, there's training, there's house training, and so forth, but those things are normal for every dog. Disposition is the big thing, and a lot of it is inherited. It is something that you can control, you can groom somewhat as far as personality and all, but there's still that innate instinct. You see that in guard dogs. Dobermans, German Shepherds, whatever else. Belgian Malinois right now are the ones that is very popular. It's like a German Shepherd, it's smaller, but it sure has the aggressiveness. But that's innate. All right, we get down to, after you get through that, well, you get down into the hair coat. Now, hair coats are important, because with a hair coat, you have to have the dog groomed, whether it be just bathing or clipping. If it's a long-haired dog, he's going to have mats. If it's a short-haired dog, he's going to shed. And they do shed more in summertime because I got to get rid of that summer hair coat. I've got short-haired dogs, and boy, they hate to see that car go through the car wash because they spend a half an hour just vacuuming. So you do have that to consider. Mats on long-haired dogs can be a problem. They will usually develop in certain areas of the body more so than others, but you have to get them out of there. If you don't leave them there, they can be a problem. It's a great place for fleas to live. Ticks like certain areas, fleas like certain areas of the body where it's a little more oily up in front of the tail head. But you have that to consider. Now, one of the biggest problems you have with long-haired dogs is you get a mat. As the dog gets older, he doesn't maybe clean himself as much as he should, and you start to get what's moist dermatitis problems underneath these mats. That then attracts flies, and there lies your biggest problem with this situation. The fly lays eggs, the eggs become maggots, and you got a long-haired dog with maggots in his hair coat. And when he walks in the office, you can smell him, and you know just what he's got. And usually it's around the rectal area, because his little bowel movement gets matted back there, caught back there, begins to get messy. The flies are there, and there you go. I have seen maggots eat holes a quarter an inch deep in dog skin. So they are there. Maggots are a big, big problem. And, of course, well, then you got lice and fleas. I mentioned all that means. But you got to get these mats out of there, and you've got to get the dog groomed, bathed, or whatever. They do need baths periodically, and the toenails have to be clipped. But long-haired dogs require a little more attention. Now, as far as size, well, that's a personal thing. If you like big dogs, that's what you want. But they will eat more. They do take a little more space. Put them in the car, they'll take up a larger space in the car, so fewer people can get with them. But they do eat a little more. Now, as far as attention, they don't require much more attention, say, other than a long-haired dog, except you don't have the coat matting and so forth. But they do eat more. Now, as far as what type of foods you feed, big dogs will eat hard foods just right out of the sack with no trouble at all. Small dogs tend to be a little more particular, so they don't eat as quickly. So everybody says, well, I better go ahead and get him some canned food. Okay, you give him canned food, he eats the devil out of that. Then he will go back to the dried food. But when he does eat that soft food, his teeth are beginning to deteriorate when he gets up around 5 years old or so, and you start getting teeth having to be pulled out. Whereas with a larger breed, you generally don't have that problem because he'll eat the dry food. The dry food tends to be abrasive on the teeth, and keeps them clean. So you do have the food situation with smaller breeds. And with the teeth problem, why then you can get abscess teeth. You'll get teeth start falling out. The mouth odor becomes horrendous. So you have that to worry about. The large breeds, they've got their hip dysplasia. The hip dysplasia is where the ball and the socket of the joint don't fit together properly. And when that happens, why the dog aches, he hurts. And you can tell when a dog with hip dysplasia will get up, he'll sort of give a little grunt, an extra grunt to get up. He'll have a little different gait, and you can even feel it in his hips sometimes. When you get it bad enough for you, they luxate or dislocate. As far as treatment on that, there really is no treatment. But I had one procedure I used that I picked up at some veterinary meeting someplace, and it's cutting a muscle. If you lay your dog on its back and spread the legs apart, the hind legs, you'll see from the groin area down to the knee, there'll be a large muscle. Depending upon the size of the dog, it'll be anywhere from, maybe about a half an inch up to a smaller breed will be much smaller. But the smaller breeds don't have dysplasia, so you don't have that to contend with. Generally, you know. But it can happen. But anyway, that muscle, you cut a piece of that muscle out of there, that relaxes the joint so it can go back into the ball, so it can go back into the socket a little bit better. And I have seen very good relief with that. So, what do we got?
Yep, Dr. Leigh, we're going into a commercial break, and we'll be right back after these few short messages. Dr. Doug Leigh, veterinarian, and I'll be right back. Dr. Doug Leigh's with us. Dr. Leigh, you were talking about this man who wanted his dog's ears cut.
Right.
And we think we own these animals, and I tell my dog, I get down on the floor with him, and I tell all of our dogs when I get down on the floor with them, I tell them, I'm so glad you live here. I'm glad you've chosen to stay here, and we're your family. I guess a lot of people think that their animals are owned by them and they can do whatever they want. Have you seen that in your practice?
Yes, I have. And really, most people treat the animal as they would one of their family. Occasionally, you get someone who mistreats the dog. As far as this ear cropping, it used to be done. Everybody had to have a Doberman with the ears cropped, and then the pit bulls came along, and then they had to have them cropped. Boxers had to have. Well, then it sort of phased out of popularity, and I think right now it's not done as extensively as it had been, and I think that's probably a pretty good thing, because you do a dog's ears, it's pretty painful. It really is, and particularly in the summertime. Once again, you get into this fly situation. And I have seen maggots in ears, too, in the summertime. But, people tend to, maybe they don't abuse the dog necessarily. Sometimes they do, but, they tend to maybe be a little overbearing with the dog. And they put it on a lead, maybe yank it around and so forth. Here's something else I wanted to mention, Vince, while we were talking about these breeds. Insurance. I don't know, a lot of people probably aren't aware, and I'm sure they probably still don't insure certain breeds of dogs. Some insurance companies won't insure chows, Dobermans, German Shepherds, Pit Bulls, and a couple other breeds. And that's just so if you've got homeowners insurance, it's not covered. Many people are not aware of that. So that's
Dr. Leigh, that's a really good point.
A big breed dog. Make sure that, well, if it's one of those aggressive breeds, but it wouldn't hurt to check and make sure that it's covered by your homeowners. Well, here's something else I wanted to mention, too. As far as breeds, now, of course, we got mixed breeds, we got purebred breeds. Mixed breeds from the Humane Society generally make very good dogs, good pets, disease-free, and no genetic weaknesses. They've been diluted during the breeding period. But there is on the Internet a site called Wikipedia, Wikipedia.com. And Wikipedia, if you're looking for a certain breed of dog, get on Wikipedia, type in the name and breed of the dog, and they'll give you everything you'll ever want to know about it: disposition, genetic traits, life history, and so forth. But that's a very, very good source for information on what breed to get.
You mentioned insurance, and I had it with our insurance company, and I decided to shop for insurance. And so I called a bunch of insurance companies, Allstate, State Farm. I called most of the big names. And I got the question from many of these phone calls when I was shopping for home insurance, actually farm insurance. And the question is, do you have any dogs? Mm-hmm. Yep, we do. And what kind? And they were very interested in German Shepherds, Pit Bulls, Dobermans. You're exactly as you said. And they were telling me that, if you've got one of those, we can't insure you.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what about an English Mastiff or a Neapolitan Mastiff? Oh, that's fine. That's fine. So it was more what they determined the personality of the dogs to be rather than the size of the dog. And I think, we've had German Shepherds and they've been absolutely delightful. Yeah. And so the question now is it because of the family that the dog lives with and how the dog is treated, not being yelled at, hit, chained up, scolded? Do all those negative things have a bearing on the dog's personality? Well,
first of all, you have genetics is probably the biggest thing when it comes to this aggressive trait. Because, there was a movement at one point to euthanize aggressive bloodlines of Dobermans. Because there were, I believe it was 2 bloodlines that were extremely aggressive. And I don't know whether they ever got that straightened out or not, but this was several years ago that this was done. But the genetics enter into this. Now, once again, we go back to this guy with the pit bull and the ear cropping deal. 8 weeks old.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going into another break, and let's talk more about this dog and his master when we come back. Dr. Doug Leigh's with us. He's a veterinarian, retired, and we're talking about aggressive dogs and aggressive breeds. And you were telling us a story about this one master who wanted to have his pit bull's ears cut.
How much of that do we get into? You remember?
Well, I think you were going to tell us about the personality of that dog and maybe how his handler, his master, wanted to increase his aggressiveness. Yeah.
Well, of course, he had the little dog, 8-week-old dog, had the aggressiveness there already. I don't know when he started. I assume he probably got the dog probably about 6 weeks of age or thereabouts. But at 8 weeks of age, it was growling, snarling, snapping, and everything. It's supposed to put your fingers out there at it. Now, what do they? They fight with these dogs. That's why they want the combat cut. Because the combat cut is virtually no ear, just maybe about an inch. That's about it. So therefore, they can't get bitten off or anything, or hung on to by another dog. But this guy was quite a character. You can imagine what he was like.
I was looking at some of the on the internet, some of the most aggressive dog breeds, and I was kind of surprised at a couple of them. American Pit Bull Terrier, Rottweiler. Rottweiler, I guess, does not really surprise me because I think some of the owners choose that dog for the look of the dog as well as maybe some of the aggressiveness.
I'll tell you a story about
Siberian
a
Husky.
The guy came in and the dog's toenails trimmed. We can't put the dog on a table because he's too big, so we got him on the floor. Well, I said, "Can you hold him?" "Oh, yeah, I can hold him." Well, in the process, we never did get the nails trimmed. And he was bitten, his hands were bleeding and everything else. He said, "Well, he didn't mean to do that." I said, "He didn't mean to do that? Look at your hand." It wasn't an accident. But yeah, that was a Rottweiler. That's the last time we saw that Rottweiler, thank goodness. But yes.
Yeah, and then Siberian Husky is another one. I've seen Huskies. I didn't think that they were aggressive. At least the ones I have seen.
I put a question mark by them. I really would.
Okay. How about,
once again,
all right, German Shepherds?
Remember, this dog is a little more on the wild side than other dogs because, he came out of the Northlands. He was a working dog, still is a working dog up there. So, they, as a breed, they can probably go further back into the wolf line than what our average pet is.
German Shepherd is another one.
Aggressive Huskies. Really have.
All right. How about the German Shepherd? Now, of course, we've talked about that, and a lot of people think they're aggressive. Ours have, if they see something, they say something. There's no question about it when we had German Shepherds.
I don't consider a Shepherd an aggressive dog.
You do not?
Once again, you can't make them aggressive. They are made into guard dogs. They're used in the military quite extensively just because they are a very intelligent dog and they will adapt to whatever they're trained to do. So, yes.
Do dogs remember? Like everything?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they do. Without a doubt. It doesn't take too much to make them remember either. If it's something they don't like, they'll sure remember it. If it's something sort of so-so, maybe they won't remember quite as much. They'll repeat of that situation, and they will definitely remember. Yes. And I think they can converse with us too. They understand what you're saying. More so we probably realize. And there has been literature out on that too. Much more so.
How about the Alaskan?
You mentioned German Shepherd. I want to mention this Belgian Malinois. I quite frankly, I never heard of the Belgian Malinois till I guess during the wars in the Middle East. Maybe there were a few of them around, but then the police started to use them, and the military started to use them because they were very trainable, very aggressive, and smaller than a German Shepherd. A guy can jump out of an airplane with a Malinois strapped to his someplace and land, as he couldn't do that with a German Shepherd because he's just too big. The Malinois is a dog probably up around 40 pounds, 45 pounds or so, maybe 50. But, a Shepherd is much, much heavier than that. But that's a very aggressive breed. I haven't seen, when I was practicing, I didn't see too many showing up. Thank goodness. There may be more now because people are more concerned and they want a guard dog because of the instability of the world and their neighborhood.
Okay.
So
I have...
find more guard dogs.
My dog is
a... Pet outlook has changed. I was in practice for 40 years. And I started back in 1965 in Springfield, Missouri. And I saw dogs go from the little cocker, which was the most popular dog then, and the poodle was around. And then as the world got stranger and stranger and people have started having more problems in their communities, we start seeing the bigger dog show, and that's where the Rottweilers, the Pit Bulls, the German Shepherds always right in there, quite popular. But then the real aggressive ones start to show up, and they're all over the place now. All over the place.
When we had some expos, survival and preparedness expos, and one of our instructors is a dog breeder, and he breeds English Mastiffs. And I was so impressed with one of his English Mastiffs that we did. Mrs. Finelli and I decided to buy one from him, and his name is Thomas Jefferson. He's about 200 pounds, just a wonderful disposition. But when people come to the farm for the first time, he'll run out there and he's in defensive mode. He just wants to make sure that we're all going to be okay. And the question that they ask is, does he bite?
Yep.
And my response is, he hasn't bitten anyone all day. but I don't know if that dog would be considered an aggressive dog, because ours is not. Are they? Are the English Mastiffs aggressive?
No, I don't think so. The ones I've seen and been exposed to haven't been aggressive, no. I had a Doberman one time. It was a gray Doberman. They called them blue, but they were gray. And he had little beady eyes. And people would come in the driveway, he would just look at them. And boy, nobody get out of the car.
Right.
He didn't do anything. Right. He never bit anybody, never did anything, just stare them down. And yeah, that does a lot. And just the presence of a big dog will keep people away. I've lived in the country out here since I came to Springfield, Missouri, which is about 50 years ago. And I live in the country, and I put up a sign, "Beware of dog." To this day, I still have a sign, "Beware of dog." In 50 years, I've never had any problem with anybody or anything out here. I think a sign does a lot. No matter what, if you got a little poodle, they don't know that. They see a sign out there and they stay away. But the presence does a lot. If they see the dog, boy, they'll pass it among their buddies if they're in for no good.
You know, as you were saying that, Dr. Leigh, I was thinking that I should probably put up a sign here on our farm that says, "Beware of owner."
Okay. Well, there's a lot of, you can find them in the lumber yards, all kinds of signs, or on the internet. But a sign does a lot, I think, to keep people away. Just the presence of the sign and the fact that there's a dog in there makes them think twice before they ever do anything.
You know, I keep thinking about the docking of the ears and the cutting of the ears. Is the dog anesthetized when that is okay?
Yes.
And okay. And how long?
Oh yeah.
When the dog comes to, how long does that dog feel that pain?
Oh, I'm sure instantly. I mean, you have to. It's just like doing surgery on yourself. You're going to feel something there. But yeah, I'm sure he feels it is. He starts shaking his head. He must feel something. He'll be shaking his head and maybe trying to pull at his ears. It can be pretty messy. It really can. If they tear the stitches out, and it'll all heal, but it can take quite a bit, twice as long.
How about we bought or we were given a Neapolitan Mastiff, another fairly large dog, a little smaller than the English Mastiff, and she had her tail docked before we were given this dog. Does that hurt the dog as well, having their tails cut?
That is done at just a day or two of age. Does it hurt? I guess it's probably like circumcision. Does it hurt? It's. I don't think it hurts the dog. The dog squeals while you do it, and that's it. Then they go back to nursing. So, but yeah, it's done at a day or two of age. If it's done older, if it's older, then you got to put them out, and it becomes a bit of a problem. I mean, they certainly let you know that wasn't much fun.
Is there a reason to have a tail docked other than the preference of the master? Yeah,
there really is. Take some of these big dogs, like a German a Doberman, rather. You take a Doberman with a big long tail, you get him in the house, and he whips the tail, and there goes everything's off the coffee table on the floor.
Right. Sure.
Secondly, if they get into a situation where they're, say, in a kennel or something, and they got that tail whipping, I've seen tails come in, the end's just been raw as the devil, where they've been beat to death by the dog flipping his tail back and forth and hitting a wall or something. But that is the only reason I have seen, but that is something that isn't a common situation.
All right, since we're talking about
the other docking, most docking is done for cosmetic purposes and show purposes.
Okay. Since we're talking about large breeds during this broadcast, when we got our large breed dogs, larger than German Shepherds, we were told by the breeders that you've got to feed large breed dog food to large breeds. Is that true? And if so, why?
Well, by large breed dog foods, what do they mean? Do they mean size-wise?
No, the package will say for large breeds. It's formulated for large breeds.
Yeah. Well, I would say if you can afford it, it's probably a little more expensive. Yeah, it would probably be the thing to do. Is it necessary? I don't think it's that necessary. I really don't. I have my own dogs, and I never got into real specialty type feeds, and everybody's lived to be a very, very healthy, normal age. But if it's going to be more expensive to get these formulated feeds, but there is a little bit more in them. But once again, does the dog need that much? A lot of questions there, I think.
Okay. When we come back, can we talk about extending a dog's lifespan? What do we do to help our dogs live longer? And also post-leggedness. We'll be right back. Dr. Leigh's with us, Dr. Doug Leigh. Dr. Leigh, how can we help our dogs live longer? Those of us who have large breed dogs, we're talking about a very short life expectancy, 5 to 7 years. That's really short. And my dog is just over 4 years old now, and I'm thinking, boy, a year or 2 or 3 more to go. That's terrible. It seems like he's such a young dog.
Right. Well,
what can we do?
I say 5 to 7 now. Consider the 5 area. You're talking more the Great Dane breed, because they're very short-lived. I think your dog is up around 8 or 9 or so. Do you know what the breeder told you?
I would think maybe 8 or 9 is about right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just about.
But that seems so short. They barely get going.
It really does. Just think, the guy has a dog for 5 years, all of a sudden he's gone. I've seen him at 5 years of age, just about to the calendar time. It's over. Mm-hmm. But of course, food is very important. Now, I mentioned food. Yes, you have specialty foods for big breeds and all. Yeah, they're good. Now, we get into the cheap foods, and I'm talking about, I shouldn't mention any names, and I won't, but say from some of the cheap discount stores. And we have one.
I can only think of one.
Very popular in this area. I think we know who we're talking about. I don't think that food is very good. And I think food is important. If you get food from a name brand producer, I think you're getting a quality food. If you get a cheap producer, and there's some awfully expensive dog foods out there, cost just about as much as buying human steak. But those are very good. But once again, the average person cannot afford to spend that much for dog food. But there's good foods. Now, yes, the food is important. Exercise is important. Country dogs, yours and mine, come and go as they please. Let's keep people in town. I think the dog parks are good. Exercise is important. Keep them groomed. Grooming is important. Teeth are very important. And once again, that gets back to the food. If you feed a dry food, and it's dry food exclusively, along with maybe some other canned food, but primarily they munch on that dry food. That'll keep the teeth clean. The little breeds with the canned food or very soft foods, they're sure as heck going to have tooth problems, and then tooth problems form abscesses, and that in turn causes an infection, which drags down their health, and that shortens their life expectancy. But really, if you just treat them the way you would treat yourself, I think, as far as a life expectancy, exercise, food, make sure that they're checked for worms. That's important in pets, because we don't have that problem in people, but pets very commonly pick up worms, and fleas can be a factor. Tapeworms come from fleas. If you ever seen a tapeworm, it looks like a little piece of rice. That's a worm that's inside the dog's stomach that's anywhere from 12 to 18 inches long. And all you see is that little piece come out. The flea eats the eggs that are inside there. Then the dog swallows the flea when he itches and scratches and chews on himself, swallows that flea. One infected flea is a tapeworm, and that's an 12 to 18 inch long worm. Hookworms, they get those outside in the ground. You've got heartworms, too. They're transmitted by mosquitoes. So you do have to check on the worm situation in pets. They have no control over what they're going to walk in out in the ground. They don't wear shoes. So therefore, they get hookworms, could migrate up through their feet They eat stuff off the ground. They can get hookworms that way. They have no control over the mosquitoes or the fleas, except, well, if we control the fleas with a spray or whatever you're going to use to control fleas. But, yeah, control the parasites, feed, just environmental stuff.
How about post-legged?
Genetics take a big part of it, too. They'll determine how long they're going to live. And that's what I say. A humane society mixed breed dog has all the genetic weaknesses diluted down so that they aren't even a factor. You'll see very few humane society dogs with real serious things that relate to a breed.
There you go. That's great. So overall, if we want a dog to live the longest, have the fewest problems, mixed breed, is that the answer?
I'd say it's about as good as any. There's a lot of them out there. I've got 2 of them here now. Great dogs, no problem. Yeah, I think a mixed breed is good. But, you know, people do like purebreds. And if you like a purebred, you want a purebred, and you don't know what you want, get on Wikipedia. If you know what you want, get on Wikipedia anyway and read about it. And if you don't know what you want, go look at the Humane Society or Dog Pounds or something.
Dr. Leigh, thank you so much for sharing this broadcast classroom with us. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. And I'm delighted to be broadcasting this hour with Howard Godfrey. And he's written a fabulous book on emergency preparedness. And it's called Emergency, Preparedness, and More. I've got the second edition in my hand. It's revised and expanded. It's a manual on food storage and survival. 423 pages of information that I suggest you consider having at your fingertips and committing to memory. And for those of you who want to share the message of preparedness and survival with friends and family, this is a great way to go. Seriously. It's available at Amazon.com. I have my own copy, and I also have a copy for you today. And I'll be giving away, actually, Howard will be giving away, I'll be shipping it to a person who calls. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do it this way. Just send me an email, Vincent at USA Prepares. Vincent, Vincent, at USAPREPARES.com. And I'll just pick some random number of the emails we receive, and I will make sure I have your address, name, and address so that I can put it in the U.S. Postal Service and send this copy. 423 pages. It's a fabulous book. It's absolutely, I would say it's almost mandatory. And it's autographed. So what's better than that? Welcome, Howard.
Hi, how are you today?
I am well, Howard. And I just love your book. And, you know, class, I got the pre-printing copy to review. And I had the opportunity to make a comment on what I thought of this book. And I'll just read it to you. My comment is on the back of the book. It says, watching mainstream media will encourage learned helplessness. Emergency preparedness and more is just the opposite. It will cut to the chase and save you time and money. An outstanding manual focused on preparing for your survival, how to prepare, what to prepare, and why. It's similar to years of USA Prepares broadcasts in a single volume. If you're new to preparedness and survival, reading this book or reading this manual from cover to cover is your best first step. Vincent Finelli, broadcaster and CEO, USAPrepares.com, Limited Corporation. So that's what I had to say about it, and I meant every word. Howard, I think we're going to be talking about solar ovens today and storage of grains. Where would you like to start?
Okay, let's start with solar ovens.
Okay.
Solar ovens are an interesting thing. If you have to cook off-grid, they are amazing. They can save you a large amount of fuel. They're very efficient. They're easy to make. Every year we get a whole group of us together, maybe 20 of us, and we get together in the morning and we bring all the information we've learned over the years and we share it and we cook a giant meal. And in the evening, late that afternoon, we serve it. It's amazing. We cook whole chickens, we cook roast, we cook all kinds of things, and we experiment with different types of solar ovens. For instance, we experiment with the traditional box oven that most people are familiar with, but we also experiment with parabolic discs. You can use those like a range top. You can fry eggs and bacon in them. They're almost as quick as a regular stove. We've been experimenting with the new glass tube type, and those are very efficient, very quick, and are just so efficient. My wife loves it. She uses them in the summer here when it's hot. That puts all the cooking outside and keeps heat out of the kitchen, saves us on air conditioning, or, it just makes a tremendous difference. Now, people think because they live in cold climates they can't use them. I've got a friend who cooks regularly on his on top of 4 foot of snow. He just uses a lot of insulation. As long as you got sun, you can cook.
Very good point.
Absolutely amazing what you can do with them. You can purify water in them. You can sterilize. You can sterilize material. You can dry food in them. There's just a whole raft of things you can do with them.
Howard, that's a really good point. Dehydrate fruits, vegetables, absolutely. When you meet with this group annually, do any of those in the group make their own solar ovens? I'm not talking about. I'm sure some bring the manufactured solar ovens, ones that you can buy commercially on the internet and at preparedness expos and so forth. But do any of your friends make their own?
Oh, probably at least half of them are homemade. The parabolic discs are, for instance, the ones that are homemade. They'll find one of those old satellite dishes, preferably one that's about 3 or 4 foot across, and they'll figure out where the sun reaches its apex up the top, and they'll put a little stand up, and then they set the pan on top of that. And
now would this be similar to when we were children? We learned about the sun and magnifying glasses, and we'd find a leaf, an oak leaf, and take that magnifying glass and find the focal point where the sun's rays would become the hottest and burn holes in the leaf. Is that what you're talking about? Doing that kind of thing, but with a metal kettle?
Exactly. That's exactly it, and it shines on the bottom of the pan, and the pan just heats up so quick you can use a cast iron frying pan, and you can fry your eggs in it. They're just like using a stovetop.
Now, what is the surface of that antenna, that parabolic antenna, covered with? Because typically they're gray or white, and they're designed not to absorb. Not to reflect the heat. What are they covered with? Are they painted with a bright reflective paint or aluminum foil? What do they use?
Both. If reflective paints work good, aluminum foil, anything that's shiny that reflects the sun.
Okay.
It's just, the whole thing with solar ovens is they're limited by your imagination. I have a friend who cooks his lunch in the windshield of his car. What he does, he takes a quart mason jar and he paints it black. But before he paints it black, he puts the tape down one side. And then after he paints it, he peels that tape off so he can see in there. It gives him a little window in the side. And these sunscreens that people put in their front windows?
Sure.
He takes and puts one of those up and puts the jar between the sunscreen and the glass and aims the car at the sun. And it's quite successful at cooking in there.
So he's not using water. He's just got an empty jar that has a black painted surface on the side that catches the sun, and he uses that to absorb the heat from the sun.
Yeah, and of course the reflector is behind it, so that reflects the heat into it, and traps the heat between the reflector and the windshield. And he cooks different foods in there. He makes little stews and different things that he cooks in there every day. And at noon he has a hot meal.
That's great. That's great. And you know, Howard, you and I both advocate frugality, not wasting anything. And it sounds like your friend is one of us.
Absolutely. He could come up. There's so many different ways to cook. We've taken and improvised, and it's, some things are better than others. And as you play with these, there's a learning curve, and you find out how to improve. But we've made things as simple as take and set a tire on the ground and put a window on top of it, and it will heat up food. It's not the most efficient cooker, but it will work. It's just that simple.
And how do you find the commercially made box style solar oven with the fold up reflectors? Would you say that that's more efficient than something we might make out of a cardboard box and aluminum foil? Yeah,
on the whole. On the whole, they are a little bit more efficient, but it doesn't mean you can't equal it. The thing is, if you make one out of the cardboard box, don't line it with aluminum foil. Paint it black inside.
Okay.
We've discovered that painting it black, it absorbs more heat, it holds the heat in better. Where the aluminum foil reflects too much out back through the glass.
So if I had a cardboard box in the trunk of my vehicle and I collapsed it so I could just fold it back up into a box, what kind of food would I be able to cook? If I had, let's say I had some cans of beans and I had a can opener and I wanted to be prepared, I could certainly eat them cold. I could open them, eat them cold, but if I wanted them hot, would that painted black box aimed at the sun with a container of beans, would I be able to heat that? Well,
what we do with them is, first of all, we use one box inside another and usually insulate between them with newspaper or something else.
Okay.
Because we paint the inside black, and then we have a sheet of glass or plexiglass to go over the top to trap the heat.
Okay. And then, okay.
If you do that and you aim it at the sun, you're going to have to move it once in a while to keep the sun on it. Yeah, you could heat your food in there. You're probably going to achieve a temperature of maybe 240 degrees in there.
Wow. Okay, so what are we looking at? About a half hour? 45 minutes to heat?
It depends. I, as a rule of thumb, figure double the time you would use on a stove.
Okay. Well, that's still...
the box oven. Now, understand that compare the box oven to the oven on your stove.
Hold that thought. We're going to be right back. That's Howard Godfrey's with us, and we're talking about his book, Emergency Preparedness and More, the second edition, a manual on food storage and survival. So if you'd like, I'm going to be giving away one of these copies. Howard's given it to me to give away, and it's 423 pages. I'll be sending it out in the U.S. mail. I'm just going to pick at random an email that I get. So if you're interested in receiving, I've got one copy of this book, and the next time Howard's on, I'll do the same thing with the second copy that I have. It's the same copy that, just like the one I have in my studio. So Vincent at USA Prepares, and in the subject line, put Emergency Preparedness Book. Emergency Preparedness Book. And I'll be able to select that and pick one at random and make sure I have your name and physical mailing address so I can send it to you. It'll come out to U.S. mail. I don't keep your email addresses. They're not going to be sold. And this is just for us to get you a copy of the book. Howard, you're talking about box oven compared to a stove. Please continue.
Yeah, there's three types of solar ovens. There's the parabolic disc, which compares to your range top, your stove top. There's the box oven, which compares to your oven. And then there's a third type that came out in recent years, and that's the glass tube type, and that works kind of like your oven. And if you're cooking small quantities, those are very efficient. Those are small, and you can very quick. They're much quicker than than the box oven, but they won't do as big a quantity of food. But I have both. I have both. I have the box oven and the glass tube, and I use them regularly and love them.
Howard, when I was at a convention, a preparedness convention, I saw a display of the tube type many years ago, probably 4 years ago. And I thought, what a great idea. There's an evacuated tube. It's insulated. There's a reflective surface. It's really shiny, grabs a lot of the sun, focuses it right on the food. And it cooked very, very quickly. I'm talking about in minutes rather than, 45 minutes or an hour or hour and a half. As, maybe one of these black painted box type ovens. But my concern was, how do you clean it? How do you, when the food is in there and it's spattering, if you've got beef in there or chicken, it's spattering on the inside of the glass, how do you clean that? What was your experience with that? That
particular brand you're talking about, I have one. And as you'll notice, they have a metal tray that slides into the glass tube. And on the end of the metal tray, there's a place where you put a scratch pad, and it's kind of like running a ramrod down a gun barrel. And they clean out fine.
Great. And that was my concern. If you're on the go, how do you do that? So it is achievable.
Yeah. Now
I've noticed that. Yeah.
We take one of those with us when we travel, because we can stop at noon and heat up hamburgers and eat it on the side of the road.
There you go, and you can save some money as well. What about heating liquids? What about let's say you're going a long distance and you'd like to have a little bit of caffeine with you, and you want to have some coffee, but those thermoses just don't go 24 hours. And what I do is typically, if I'm in the truck and I'm going to go 1,000 miles or 1,100 miles, I might, if I'm pulling a trailer or something that's pretty intense behind the wheel, I may pull over after halfway through the trip and take a short nap in the truck. So I may want to have coffee with me. Can you heat coffee?
I personally don't, but I've never tried making coffee in one. I'm sure it could be done.
Okay.
I'm sure you could heat water up in one. And the regular solar box ovens, we've used them for purifying or pasteurizing water, which is another good use for them. You only have to bring water to 160 degrees to pasteurize it. And you can do that easily. You can bring it to boiling in a box oven.
When we come back, Howard, can we talk about grains and how to store them?
Sure.
There we go. Howard Godfrey's with us. We'll be right back. Emergency Preparedness and More, second edition. And you can get yours at Amazon.com. Howard Godfrey is the author. Howard, we're going to talk about grains and storing grains. I think it's something we all need to know about.
Yes. Personally, I think grains are one of the great things to store. They'll last for 20 years, 30 years. They'll store well. They're easy to store. And if something goes wrong, unless you get them wet, the worst thing you have is animal food. And I store a lot of wheat. I store a lot of rice, a lot of rye, spelt, and different other grains. And the way I store them is I store them with oxygen absorbers in Mylar bags, mostly inside 5-gallon buckets or inside number 10 cans. There's a lot of information out now on storing grains, and it's really been developed by BYU University. And you can get grains stored correctly that'll sprout at 20 or 30 years now. A lot of people I know say, well, if they don't sprout, they won't eat them. I think that's a fallacy, because even though they have lost some of their nutrition, they still have calories. But at worst, unless they've gotten wet and moldy, you can use them for animal food.
Chickens will eat them.
Beg your pardon?
The chickens will eat them.
Yeah, chickens are quite happy. Pigs, things like that, are happy to eat them. I have eaten wheat that's 30 and 40 years old, and some of it sprouted, some of it didn't. It's all been good. You can bake bread with it. You can cook with it. It provides calories. And getting calories will be one of your big problems in an emergency. When we first started storing wheat years ago, we started storing it in 5-gallon metal buckets. And at that time, there wasn't oxygen absorbers. There wasn't as much knowledge, so we just put it in the buckets. We put bay leaves on top of it in an attempt to keep the bugs out, or else we put dry ice at the bottom of the can and waited till it filled up with fumes, and then just shoved the lids on. And 30 years later, we've eaten a lot of it, and it's stored well. Today, they've improved the methods of storing it. You'll get more reliable sprouting and everything if you use Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. That's my preferred method. Today, I'll use a plastic bucket. I'll put a 5-gallon plastic bucket. I'll put a Mylar bag in it. I'll fill the bag full. I will then seal the Mylar bag with a strip of metal that I use in an iron. After putting an oxygen absorber in, I put a 2,000 cc oxygen absorber in. What the oxygen absorbers are, they're a little package of rust and salt. So that when it's exposed to moisture, the metal filings in there, the metal powder, rusts immediately. And the rust is a slow oxidation that takes the oxygen out of the air. So you lose about 20% of the volume of your bag. A lot of people get concerned when they don't see it tucked down tight because they think it's going to go like a vacuum seal. Don't let that bother you. It's only going to take 20% out. And they're great. It's so simple anymore compared to what it used to be, and so much more reliable. Personally, I use food-grade plastic buckets. Some people say, well, because you're using a Mylar bag, you don't need to use food-grade buckets. My reason for doing that is because in an emergency, after the food is used, that bucket still has to be used for something else. If I want to use it to make, say, sauerkraut, and to ferment sauerkraut or something like that, I could go ahead and use that bucket because it's food-grade. So by having all food-grade buckets, I don't have to worry about figuring out which is which.
Right. I totally agree with you. Howard, I've got a question for you. As you were saying this, I was thinking back to my last filling buckets with grains. And I did it a little bit differently. I bought a nitrogen cylinder. It's about 4 feet tall, and it's got compressed nitrogen gas in it. And I have a regulator for that. It's kind of like a welder's tank regulator. And a green hose that's made for nitrogen. And what I did was I filled the contents, the grains in this bucket, but I used a liner. I used just a food-grade bucket, 5 gallons, a 5-gallon liner, and I put pasta in there, and I put the grains in there, and different buckets with different food items. And then I filled it with nitrogen, starting at the bottom. I had a long wand, and I stirred the material inside the bucket with a wand, and I had the lid almost completely over the top of the bucket, and then I finally added some more oxygen as I was sealing the bucket. And it works just fine that way for me. However, I was thinking, as you were saying this, of a new improved version 2 of what I did. And I was thinking, I bought some tire valve stems. I bought about 100 of them because we've got a lot of tires here at the farm. And I thought, I could drill a hole in the top of the bucket, and I could insert this tire valve stem. And after I did the procedure I just talked about, if I had a tire valve stem at the top and then hammered that lid shut, every year or so I could just top off with, maybe 3, 4, 5 pounds per square inch of additional nitrogen. What do you think about that?
I think it would work. I think you have to consider two things. One, you have to remember that plastic breathes.
Right, and that's why I was thinking of topping off the nitrogen.
And that's the reason I like Mylar, because Mylar doesn't breathe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The Mylar bags don't breathe. And the oxygen absorbers have become so reliable, all the major food companies have went to it in their number 10 cans.
They have, yes.
Yeah, and they've quit using the nitrogen because it's so much simpler to put the oxygen absorber in.
Okay.
I think your method works fine. I think that the nitrogen flush you're using will work. It'll keep the bugs out. Personally, for me, I think the oxygen absorbers are easier.
Sure. No disagreement from me. So how long do you think we can store pasta? For example, let's say we were to take regular spaghetti and open up the 1 or 2 pound packages, put it in a 5-gallon bucket, add the oxygen absorbers, pack it in kind of tightly so there's not a lot of airspace. Mostly food product is in there in terms of volume, and we do it all in a Mylar bag, as you're talking about. How long would that last?
In number 10 cans or Mylar bags, it's good.
Mylar bags in a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, Mylar in either Mylar bags or number 10 cans, metal cans.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for 20 years.
Okay. And what kind of deterioration would we see in pasta?
In pasta, you may have a little difference in taste.
Okay.
You may have a little difference in taste. You may lose a little bit of nutrition. The calories are still going to be there. I mean, but if you got 80% of the nutrition and 100% of the calories, you're a whole lot better off than somebody who's got no food.
Absolutely. What about popcorn? What about storing popcorn?
Popcorn is really good to store. The only thing you have to be aware of with popcorn is make sure that your grinder, if you're planning on grinding it into flour or into cornmeal, make sure that you have a grinder that's rated for popcorn. Popcorn is much harder than normal corn, and some of the grinders do not work effectively with it.
Okay. I can tell you this, that we've got buckets of wheat that we've stored, and Hardy Red and white. And grinding your own wheat is work if you've got a hand grinder. I don't care how big a person is. It is work. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. If you can figure out a way to power that grinder, you're going to be miles ahead.
Yeah. It's going to take some time to grind it, and there's not going to be a line of people in the family saying, "Can I do it? Can I do it?" Maybe for the first 10 minutes, and then they'll get over it within 10 minutes. Okay, so popcorn works really well. What doesn't work well in storing grains and foods in these Mylar bags and buckets? And the reason for the buckets is because it's harder for the mice to get in there, right?
That's correct. the bucket protects the Mylar bag from being punctured. Now, the thing I see people storing periodically that is a mistake is brown rice. I mean, admittedly, brown rice has better nutrition than white rice. But brown rice also contains a much higher base oil. So what you have to do is you have to store white rice. Brown rice will only store for about 6 months before it turns rancid. If it gets extremely rancid, the smell and the taste will put you off. If it's only mildly rancid, it can be carcinogenic. And, resulting in cancer. So I personally avoid the storing of brown rice. I do store a lot of white rice. It stores well. It'll store for 30 years. It doesn't have as much nutrition, but it's there.
How about diatomaceous earth mixed in with the white rice? Have you experimented with that?
It's put in primarily for the use of bugs.
Right.
To keep bugs out, but if you use the oxygen absorbers and you put it in, you do them correctly, you won't have the bugs anyway because they can't exist in the oxygen-deprived atmosphere.
Howard, if the rice had bugs in it, would you eat it?
Yes.
There you go. We'll be right back. We're going to talk more about storing food. So Howard, I was looking through some of the emails that have been sent in this little book giveaway, and one of them was really interesting. It says, actually, they're all very interesting, but here's one that I found amusing. I've bought 3 of these books for my family for Christmas, but would love an autographed copy. Would you also sign it, Vincent? Thank you, Al. Isn't that interesting, Howard, that Al bought 3 copies of your book already to give as Christmas presents? So obviously he's concerned about preparedness and survival, and he wants to make sure that his family makes it through to the other side. Congratulations, Al. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And of course, you're in the running for a random selection. I'm just going to pick a number and then select that email and send that book out. But make sure that if you put a request in for this book, that you provide your mailing address so we can send it to you. Interesting, Howard. What do you think?
That's great.
That's what I thought.
That's excellent. The one thing I would add on grains is just remember that that you need to keep them cool and you need to keep them dry. Those are the 2 big things. The cooler it is, the better. A lot of people store their food in the garage. A wise man once told me that when we had to use our food, we would probably wish we stored our food in the house and the furniture in the garage.
What a great point. Excellent point. Howard, yes?
In my book, you'll notice that there's a lot of description and information on how to store other types of grains, including buckwheat, barley, rye, oats, quinoa, things like that. And I encourage people to store that in addition to wheat.
Howard, would you address the, you talked about the garage. Now, I know a man who stored long-term storage food in the attic. And then he realized, the attic gets 130 degrees. My question's a little bit different. Obviously, storing in the attic does not make any sense to me. My concern is temperature change, okay? So if a person did store it in the garage, the temperature would change from day to night because not everybody's garage is insulated. Many people have freestanding garages that aren't insulated at all. So day-night temperature changes, winter-summer temperature changes. What are your thoughts about the temperature fluctuations that could happen multiple times per day in this long-term storage of food in these buckets, as we've been discussing?
Because you're talking about a bulk, I don't think that's as critical as high temperatures. if you can keep the temperature under about 70 degrees, you're great. All the tests at BYU seem to indicate that I've read. But once you start getting up into temperatures 100, 115 degrees, you start shortening the life of your food tremendously.
Okay. And when you buy Mylar bags, is there a size that you particularly like to use? Is it based on the size of consumption at that time? Meaning, do you make it a meal size or a day's worth size or a week's worth? How do you determine how much to put in those Mylar bags?
Well, if I'm storing grain, I get the 6-gallon ones and fill the can full, and then I keep some of the screw-type lids around, the gamma lids that I can put on the cans after I open them.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay, class. The gamma lids are it's a ring with an unscrewable lid at the top, so you can tighten it down, and then you can open it over and over and over again. That's called a gamma lid. And that's more expensive. It's several times more expensive than the hammer down lids that are thought to be used once. Well, you can use them more than once, but you're going to want to get a can opener for it. And a can opener is almost like a pliers made out of plastic that's fixed, and it's especially designed just to open these lids. Any quick 10-second?
Now that's good advice. Just store lots of food. Don't be stingy about it. You're always going to need more than you think you will.
Yeah, absolutely great advice. Emergency, Preparedness, and More. Howard Godfrey. It's available on Amazon. Thank you, Howard. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.